Hello, dear beloveds. It's so lovely to be here with you. It's been a little bit of time since I've been going live as much as I wanted to in the group. I've been on retreat with my third level priestesses in Bali, which was truly glorious and life-changing, and has, coming back to freezing cold Melbourne's been a little bit bumpy, but I am here and I really wanted to take this moment on Weekly Reading Wednesday. You know, my favorite thing is to do something not like a reading at all, and to talk about the idea that you are not like God and what that means. So yesterday I had a mastermind with my postgrad priestesses, and we were talking about this idea. If you had one thing that you could talk about for the rest of your life, and only one thing, so you were given one message that you could talk about for the rest of your life, and that was the only message that you could share, what would that be? And it was such a powerful exercise for all of us, because we can get very, very, good at talking about lots and lots of things, but what does it come down to? What does your life represent? What does it all come down to? And I know Amy's here, and she got hers with such clarity and power and shared it all over the internet, which absolutely made my soul sing. And for me, of course, it didn't surprise me what I wrote down on that piece of paper. And it was like, if there was only one thing that I could say to everyone for the rest of my life, it would be to know that you are not like God. You are God, and there's no negotiating on that for me. And that is it. That is my very purpose, is to invite you to meet yourself as God. Not to have a nice kind of, idea that you're an aspect of God, or that source and spirit and all of these other things might be a substitute, or even the idea of infinite consciousness, which I sometimes let people get away with. But what would it take for you to give yourself permission to know that you are God? What does that even mean? And how does it work in reality in our life? If this is the one thing that I'm going to share for the rest of my life, then I have to be really clear that I know what it means. And that's what I wanted for my postgrad priestesses. And of course, that's what I want for every person who is on this path of sacred service, because the meaning, the intentionality and behind our message is what will take us from being part of the noise to being that sense of clarity, that laser-like precision that cuts through the chaos. What is it that you stand for? What is it that God has placed you on this earth, yourself as that thing, that has placed yourself here at this moment in time to be able to convey? So when I speak about the idea that you are not like God, but that you are God, I'm really offering an opportunity for you to take total responsibility for the life that you inhabit, that you are creating actively all of the time. And that when we bring that laser-like focus to our awareness that we are God, we are not the passive receivers of a preordained reality, that we have the capacity to create a miracle-filled existence. And that is such a big responsibility that people will turn away from it. So often people turn away from the word God. Now, beyond all of the religious ideas of God, the only reason I can see why people do that, because of course you can easily, debunk the religious arguments of what God is and say, well, actually that paradigm is past. It's obvious. Let's stop using that as an excuse not to use the word God. Why do people reject the word God and the idea of God, even if they're willing to accept that they're part of something greater and that there's infinite consciousness and sources guiding them and spirits doing this? Why do we keep putting all of these obstacles between us and God, ourselves as God? And the only answer that I can conclude is that it's too big a responsibility, and that we will do everything that we can to sit back from that responsibility. Because if we own that truth, I mean, really own it. I don't mean like own it when life feels good and things are high vibing and you manifested a free thing. I mean like own it in every moment, even when things are difficult or painful or uncomfortable or going against your expectations. That there is purpose-filled intentionality to everything, because you have created everything, and as God you have divinely and perfectly created everything in order to serve the remembrance that you are God. So there is nothing that has gone wrong. Nothing can be lost in the mind of God. Nothing can have gone, even if I am the one creating it, awry, because all of it is serving my awakening to the truth that I am that. I am that. I am. Hum sa, or so hum, are the statements of I am God, not I'm a bit like God, or God's doing some bidding on my behalf, or I can access something of God in a little bit of a way, but actually it is what I am, and what I am is pure, unlimited consciousness. And God even only as consciousness for a temporary time, remembering that we're in a dream, and the dream is the dream to allow us to awaken to what we truly are. That's why in the Institute I speak so much about going beyond the trinkets and superstitions of the New Age, because most of the things that we put between us and an unmediated relationship with God are to try and give us the comfort, to not to take that full responsibility. So we'll say that the crystal has the power, or we'll say that the oracle card has the power, or that special modality has the power, or whatever else we want to imagine has more power than us. But when we have that unmediated relationship with ourselves as God, there is nothing and nowhere to hide. You can't go into hiding in that truth. You can only take full responsibility or no responsibility. It's like saying, I'm a little bit pregnant. You can't be a little bit God. You either take full responsibility of that truth, which means that in all ways and at all times, you must be on board with yourself in that truth, or you're compromising, you're being incongruent. You're saying, oh, well, I was totally being God when all the stuff was going really well. And then as soon as the stuff went bad, obviously something else has stepped in. Someone else is putting their stuff on me. That crystal stopped working. That full moon had a bad thing going on for me. Whatever it is that you want to imagine. But if we are willing to accept the idea that we come to Earth School, which is what I call it, and that's what Caroline Myss calls it, and we come to Earth School to train our consciousness to remember the truth that we are God and take full responsibility for the creation that we're inhabiting, like a virtual reality game, then we need to be willing to see that the Earth School is simply a simulation, a dream, a place where we are practicing our God nature. And anything in that Earth School is a simulation, not reality. It doesn't hold any power or potency, not even this physical form. This may feel like I've gone way down the rabbit hole, but bear with me, and I hope it's exciting for you, because it's very exciting for me. It's that not even what we identify as our physical self is God. I'm not talking about you, little Ricky, in your wrap because it's freezing in Melbourne, is God. I mean your infinite self is God. And that is beyond the dream. So the dream is not actually a manifestation of God or God consciousness at all, but a place for us to play, learn, explore, investigate, experiment, awaken to that truth that what we truly are, what we're capable of doing, has nothing to do with moving furniture in a burning building. And when we take our gaze off the desire of trying to get the dream to behave itself so we can feel good about ourselves, aka my business is doing really well, so I must be a bit more godly than I was yesterday. When we can stop thinking in that paradigm and we come into a place of loving, compassionate acceptance of all and everything that is as a tool or an opportunity to awaken, then we are beginning to truly think like God thinks. I'll give you an example. If you were writing a film script, that you wanted people to get excited about and go and see and all of that kind of stuff, you wouldn't have a film where someone sits quietly in peace for 90 minutes, because no one would buy that. They might if they were hanging out with us, but the majority of the world would not see the benefit of that film as a narrative worth watching. You would craft a story that had challenges and opportunities and change of states of being and all of these things going on, so that the journey of the hero could happen, so that the person who was the center of the narrative, the protagonist, could have an awakening story. Yes, and that's what all narratives are. All films films follow that formula of the journey of the hero espoused by Joseph Campbell. But that's what our life is. Our life is that journey of the hero. And when we're watching a film, we're not usually so caught up in it that we can't, we're not trying to jump up at the screen and say to that person, don't go down that path because that thing will happen. We're watching with the truth of the observer, of knowing that that person's going to go through some trials so they get whatever the gold is at the end. And that's the nature of most of the films that we watch. And we don't want to prevent that person going on that journey, because that actually allows that person to have that realization. What if we could observe our own lives in that way? And what if we could inhabit the dream with a curiosity and a willingness to explore and experiment and to play and to be more joyfully engaged, not looking for the ideas of certainty, of safety, of things that are actually a total illusion, and instead placed our sense of self as we are in God? And there's something one of my students, Karen, said yesterday, which I'm kind of bastardizing her version of it, but God is the eternal, immortal self. So that we stop trying to think like humans and get our guarantees in the dream. And we absolutely fearlessly wed ourselves to uncertainty. That uncertainty is actually where we awaken to what we truly are. And that safety is the death of that God consciousness. That safety is us having traded the full expression of our soul